Good. All right, how are you doing?
The committee meeting on local government and elections is now in session. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Gannon,
Aye.
Crawford,
Here.
Carter, Coleman, Koenig, Rizzo, Washington.
We have a quorum. We will go into an executive session. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. All opposed? Seeing none. Senate Bill 148, I move that we take it up. Do I have a second? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes appear to have it. This is the bill we heard from Senator Mosley relating to streetlight maintenance districts. Is there any discussion on the bill? Okay, seeing none, I move that we vote Senate Bill 148 out of committee do pass. Do I have a second? Is there any discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Gannon,
Yes.
Crawford, Carter, Coleman, Koenig, Rizzo, Washington,
We don't have a quorum.
well, no, I mean,
Okay. 3 yes. Yeah. 3 ayes and 2 noes. Okay. All right. I move that we take up Senate Bill 180. Do I have a second?
Second. Sorry.
That's okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. This is the bill we heard from Senator Crawford relating to public safety tax authorizations for Clinton and Lincoln counties. Is there any discussion on the bill?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
actually, it's Clinton and Lincoln cities rather than counties.
Okay. Clinton and Lincoln cities.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes. Okay. I now move that we vote Senate Bill 180 out of committee. Do pass. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Gannon,
Yes.
Crawford,
Aye.
Carter, Coleman, Koenig, Rizzo, Washington. Koenig?
No.
5 ayes, 1 no.
5 ayes and 1 no. I move that we take up Senate Bill 365. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. This is the bill we heard from Senator Crawford relating to public administrators. I move that we vote Senate Bill 365 out of committee. Do pass. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Gannon,
Aye.
Crawford,
Aye.
Carter, Coleman, Koenig, Rizzo, Washington. 6 ayes, 0 noes.
6 ayes and no noes. Is that all bills we're executing out? Okay. I move that we take up Senate Bill 400. Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. This is the bill we heard from Senator Schroer relating to prohibitions on the pasturing of chickens. I move that we vote Senate Bill 400 out of committee. Do pass. Do I have a second? Is there any discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Gannon,
Aye.
Crawford,
Aye.
Carter, Coleman, Koenig,
Aye.
Rizzo, Washington.
6 ayes and 0 noes. Okay. Should I leave? Okay. I have to leave to go to a committee, so Senator Crawford is going to, Vice Chair Crawford is going to take over. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. We have to go out of executive session. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those against, say no. The ayes have it. We are now out of executive session, and Vice Chair Crawford will take over.
Do you see Hough or Brown here? Oh, okay. Got it. Okay, we are going to first hear Senate Bill 354, Senator Hough's bill, but Senator Beck is going to be presenting for him. So, Senator, whenever you're ready, you can come forward and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a privilege and honor to present for Senator Hough from Greene County, Senate Bill 354. I am Senator Doug Beck, 1st District, South St. Louis County. Not sure why he asked a Democrat to do this, but whatever, I said I would. So Senate Bill 354, current law authorized ambulance and fire protection districts in certain counties to propose a sales tax of up to 0.5%. This act allows such districts to propose a sales tax up to 1%. If accepted by the voters of the individual fire or ambulance district, property tax within the county would be reduced by 50% of the funds obtained through this 0.5% increase. And with that, I will take any questions, or there's probably other folks here that could answer better than I can.
Are there any questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, is there anyone here wishing to testify in favor of Senate Bill 354? Please come forward. I see your witness form. Thank you for that. You may proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name, and members of the committee, my name is Brent Hempill. I'm here on behalf of the Missouri Ambulance Association. I want to thank Senator Beck for pinch hitting for Senator Hough. This bill's been around for quite some time. In fact, it actually has been truly agreed and finally passed. Was part of an omnibus bill that was vetoed. This is simply allowing ambulance districts under Chapter 190 and fire protection districts under Chapter 321 to allow their voters to go from a 0.5% sales tax to a 1% sales tax with a, as Senator Beck indicated, a rollback in the property tax as it would equivalent. We have a lot of ambulance districts, they're capped out. When you have ambulances that cost $500,000 and you have to hire employees, paramedics, and all sorts of stuff, costs have gone up to deliver those healthcare services in an EMS and a fire. So allowing the voters in those respective political subdivisions to go to 1% is what the purpose and intent of the legislation is. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for this witness? Senator Carter.
Thank you for your testimony. Just a quick question. For those rural areas that don't have a lot of sales tax options, are you saying then that they have the option of either implementing this or
No.
Would it stay stagnant then? Help me understand how to.
So in your area, so third and fourth class counties, traditionally a lot of ambulance districts will have still property tax, that real property and personal property that funds their EMS services. We passed, I don't know, Doyle Childers was in the Senate back then, I think it was Senate Bill 1107, that allowed the entities, political subdivision, fire and ambulance to move to a sales tax, because a lot of people have sales tax and they thought it was more equitable and could raise hopefully more money for those services. So they could transition from a real property tax base for services to a sales tax. All we're doing is we aren't making a differentiation. The local political subdivisions get to decide if they want real property and or sales tax driven services. So we don't change that in this. We're just simply going from a 0.5% on the sales tax up to 1%.
I appreciate that. I love the idea. Thank you.
Further questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up, in favor of Senate Bill 354, please come forward at this time. Just a reminder to fill out a witness form if you have not. Looks like you have. Thank you. You may proceed.
Good afternoon. My name is Ray Antonacci. I'm the chief at Lincoln County Ambulance District up Troy, Missouri. I'm also the president of the Ambulance District Association of Missouri. Like what's been said before, this has been brought up many times. And coming from a rural district, it helps quite a bit that we are able to provide both a sales tax and part of our funding from a rural standpoint is property tax also. So as our sales tax goes up, our property tax goes down. For a district like mine, if this were to pass, we would be able to go in front of the voters. So this is just an enabling kind of legislation. Go in front of the voters, ask them what they would like to have happen. Would they like to fund their ambulance district or their fire district with more sales tax, or leave it the way it is at partial sales, partial property tax? So in my particular instance, it would roll back all property tax. So there would have no property tax to the ambulance district if this were to pass. Plus, this is not unprecedented. When 911 districts were formed, they went up to 1%. So in the 190 statutes, communications departments can go up to 1% or 1 cent, and ambulance districts and fire districts are capped at the 0.5%. Anybody have any questions for me?
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up in favor of Senate Bill 354, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, anyone here wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 354, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, anyone here for informational purposes only for Senate Bill 354? Seeing none, this concludes the hearing on Senate Bill 354.
Thank you. Awesome.
Senator Koenig, I'm going to turn this over to you, if you don't mind, to allow you to chair the committee since I have a bill to present.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Sandy Crawford, District 28. Thanks for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 346 today. Last year we did a big elections bill, and this bill is simply making some clarifications and a few more updates, and I'm going to be using the substitute, which you all should have gotten a copy of. We made a few minor changes from the original bill to the sub. So here's what Senate Bill 346 does. It clarifies when the closing filing date is for elections. If the normal filing date falls on a holiday, we were actually reached out to by Weldon Springs during the interim, saying that is a problem. We did not really account for that in House Bill 1878. So this will fix that. It also clarifies who can be compensated to solicit voter registration applications. It codifies into law that election authorities will keep the permanent absentee list confidential. It also clarifies that an individual who is absentee voting in person can still cast a provisional ballot if they do not have photo ID. If you'll remember, in 1878, we allowed voters to cast a provisional ballot at the polls without photo ID, but we failed to do that when they come in person. Makes no sense that you would allow them to do it at the polls but not allow them in the county clerk's office. Were I going to, if you will, try to pull a fast one, I would not do it in the county clerk's office where I have to go face to face. It would be much easier to try something like that, I would think, at the polls rather than the county clerk's office. So it really makes no sense that we allow it one place but we don't the other. So that's just basically picking up that language from last year, fixing that. It also increases electioneering from the 25-foot buffer to a 50-foot buffer. And lastly, it adds language that would protect election officials. In the sub, we lessened the penalty because we did get some pushback after the original bill was filed, so we lessened the penalty on that protection piece. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I do have an expert witness behind me, a county clerk from here she's actually from Boone County, and she can probably answer those questions much more eloquently than I can. With that, I will take any questions if you have one.
Questions for the bill sponsor. Senator Washington, proceed.
Hi, I want to first admit that I haven't gone all the way through the sub. I apologize. But I do want to ask on the compensation of those who register voters, can you explain the difference between 1878 and what this bill will do?
Hang on just 1 second.
Uh-oh, it's my turn.
Let me
to go
find my
next door.
section. Okay. The reason it's
What page is
it
it?
should be on page 4 of the substitute.
Yes, ma'am. So we still are not allowing like League of Women Voters and other organizations to be able to, and I didn't say that because they're in the room. I said that because that is really a mission of two national organizations, is the League of Women Voters and the NAACP. Both are very, very instrumental in registering voters nationwide. And so we are still preventing them from paying anyone to do that.
This is just clarifying, and I think the clerk can answer this better. Basically, we're just getting a lot of questions from other government officials, whether about the voter registration process, and so that's why we are clarifying that.
Okay, and I have to go present a hearing, so I apologize. But also, if we could get answered, get that clarified on who can pay, who cannot pay, and two, who can actually register voters. Because I'll be honest, since the passage of 1878, many organizations, including my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and all of the Divine Nine African American organizations, which I pray still exist in Florida, in addition to the NAACP, church organizations, and other civic organizations, really spend a tremendous amount of time registering voters. They have been deadly afraid to register voters since the passage. We have even invited the Secretary of State to panels. He didn't show up at one of ours in Kansas City, and invited someone to kind of explain who can really do this. These are a lot of older folks that went through periods where their parents maybe couldn't vote, so they want to make sure that the right to vote is there. So if we can make sure that we are answering who can actually register them, and also who can go into like places like nursing homes just to hand them an absentee ballot, because that appears to be something that they cannot do for 1878, not give them the real ballot, but the application for the absentee ballot, maybe help them fill out the application. These are all things that have not just affected whatever arena or area or population of people that it possibly has been intended, but it has affected a large number of folks with their ability to vote. I mean, anyone in a nursing home right now can't get a ballot because the thought is that you can't take them the absentee ballot, and that's what they've been used to getting. And I'm not saying on this job just because I have to go present. They don't ask for that in the mail. They're not doing the mail to get the ballot to them. You understand what I'm saying? Organizations like League of Women Voters take a stack of those absentee applications to them so they can fill that out. Then the nursing home or even League of Women Voters would take that application back. And that's something that appears to be prevented in 1878. So if we could get some answers on that as well.
Senator, I will ask somebody to come to your office and answer those questions for you. Is that okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, I'm getting the nod back here. We'll get your questions answered.
Do you know the genesis of changing from 25 to 50 feet?
That's kind of been around for a while. I think I don't know specifically if it is. I don't know if there's been specific instances or not, but potentially.
I mean, what I've seen is people have no concept of what 25 feet are. Is you could be 40 feet away, and they'd be like, "You're in violation." It's like, do you not know how 25?
I don't know about you, Senator, but we always step it off if we we make sure to step it off. We'll get that question answered as well. The county clerks. Not only do we have the Boone County clerk here, but she's representing the association, and she can probably address that question as well.
I mean, I feel like 25 feet is sufficient, but.
Any other questions for the bill handler? Seeing none. Witnesses in support?
Good afternoon. I'm Brianna Lennon. I'm the county clerk for Boone County, but I'm also the secretary of the Missouri Association of County Clerks and Election Authorities, so I'm testifying on their behalf today as well. Senator Crawford did an excellent job going through the overview of the changes that we would like to see. I wanted to touch on some of the ones unique to local election officials and give some background about how we got there. So the tampering with an election official and the language about moving the electioneering, that is a genesis of partly as local election authorities talking to colleagues in other states and recognizing that Missouri is one of the smallest zones around the polling place, And we do hear from our voters during elections, especially more contentious elections, that they feel sometimes intimidated as they're going into a polling place. It can cause some unnecessary confrontations. And so the 50 feet brings us more in line with what the national average is for that space. But we also have documented instances, and St. Louis County is one of the ones that it often comes up a lot, just because they have so many polling locations that in the August of 2022 election, which was not a particularly contentious election, had 27% turnout, still had at least 5 or 6 instances where police officers had to come out to polls because there were fights that were occurring outside of polling locations. 2 candidates allegedly tried to run each other over at a polling location. These are all the things that are happening outside of the polls that we're trying to kind of insulate voters from. And then the tampering with an election official language is, it's not just us as local election authorities. We're trying to protect our poll workers too. We're seeing a lot of poll workers that are seeing national narratives. They're getting concerned. It may or may not be happening locally, but people feel like they don't have we can't give them adequate protections. So they choose not to be poll workers. It makes it harder for us to recruit them because we can't really guarantee that there's any safety in effect. So this would allow us to at least provide some assurances that, you know, they can't be doxxed. There are specific laws in place that then help us make sure that they can stay safe as well on election day.
Do we have any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Next, in support of the bill.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. I'm Jeff Smith, representing the ACLU of Missouri. We are in support of the bill, which would codify key voting protections into law, and we're very grateful to the Senator for sponsoring it. The bill contains several key provisions that we think would protect voters across Missouri. First, it would make confidential, as the Senator mentioned, the permanently disabled absentee ballot list. Second, it would expand access to provisional ballots to those voting in person absentee across all public elections. Finally, it would establish a statutory crime of tampering with election officials. We think protecting the administration of elections throughout the state, something which has been increasingly in jeopardy as we've seen over the last couple election cycles, election officials being threatened all over the country. I know it's made it very difficult for local county clerks to recruit people to come and work in elections, and so we think this would be very important. Senator Koenig, you asked, what would be the impetus for the expansion from 25 to 75 feet. I can't speak to this, but sorry?
We changed it to 50.
Oh, changed to
in the
50.
sub.
I apologize.
In the sub.
Okay. All I can say is that I was certainly repeatedly reprimanded for violating the 25-foot margin many years ago, so I don't know if I had anything to do with it, but it is very tempting, you know what I mean, when people are kind of talking while you're walking. So maybe starting a little further back would help ensure that people don't feel intimidated when you get close to the door.
Do we have any questions for the witness? Seeing none, make sure you fill out a witness form. Next, in support, please fill out a witness form, state your name, and 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll do a lot better. My name is Brant Shields from the Missouri School Boards Association. Just want to go on record in support of one specific part of this bill that moves the filing date if it falls on a holiday. There are years coming up where it would fall on Christmas Day. You want to change that so it makes it easier for candidates. And we've been talking with others on companion bills about potentially moving that filing date so we avoid Christmas altogether. But just want to say we support that part of the bill and go on that record.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, next in support.
Hello. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Sharon Galway-Jones here on behalf of the Missouri Voter Protection Coalition. We think this bill contains a lot of good cleanup provisions that will help our local election authorities do a really good job of administering elections. We have a couple of tweaks, and you all should have received a letter from Denise Lieberman, who's the head of our coalition, with those in them. Briefly, we appreciate the move from 75 to 50 feet and think that is much more fair and will allow for participation without intimidation. So thank you for doing that. And also, just want to bring in, I know Senator Washington stepped out, but the lawsuit that is currently pending has put a hold on the who can and cannot pay for voter registration solicitation employees. And we appreciate the fact that we're cleaning that up, because should that lawsuit fail, that law will go back into effect immediately, even though there is a temporary restraining order on it. So we think that is a good cleanup, so that at least the government officials will be able to do their jobs. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, next in support.
Thank you.
Please fill out a witness form, and 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Senator Gannon and members of the committee. My name is Marilyn McLeod. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Missouri, and we are in great support of this legislation. I want to thank Senator Crawford for bringing it forward. There are quite a few parts of it that are really positive, and any efforts that help citizens to vote and to keep elections safe, we would be certainly in favor of. That it also keeps the permanently disabled absentee list confidential is a positive, and absolutely protecting any of our election officials is a positive. So thank you very much.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, next in support.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Jordan Kadosh. I'm the regional director for ADL Heartland, the Anti-Defamation League. We cover all of Missouri, southern Illinois, and eastern Kansas. Here to express support for the anti-doxing provisions. ADL is in favor of anti-doxing provisions across the board, and these would prevent harassment of election officials. According to a 2021 nationally representative survey that ADL conducted, 41% of Americans have experienced online harassment, characterizing 27% of that as severe. And so thank you very much. I urge you to vote yes. Questions?
Any questions? Seeing none. Next in support. Seeing none, we will go to opposition. First witness in opposition to the bill. Seeing none. Informational purposes only. Please state your name, witness form, and 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. I've got my witness form right here. I'm Leanne Hahn. I'm with the Missouri Developmental Disabilities Council. And I just, I'm not going to belabor a lot of the points that were brought up, but if you're not familiar with the DD Council, we're just a nonpartisan group of self-advocates, people with disabilities, and their families. And just 2 points in this bill, we kind of speak in terms of removing or presenting disproportionate barriers. And this does remove some disproportionate barriers for people with disabilities. To Senator Washington's question earlier, one of the groups I want to make sure is kind of factored in are people with disabilities. So with the registering limit of a government entity or an employee not being able to help register more than 10 voters, that actually applies to the DD Council and people with disabilities. So that's another group that kind of relies on advocacy organizations to present things in plain language or help facilitate or educate people on registering to vote, specifically people with disabilities. And so that would be, that would remove that barrier. And then also, obviously, keeping the permanent disability information private is another kind of obvious barrier removal for people with disabilities. So I just wanted to make those 2 points.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, is there anyone else here for informational purposes only?
Thank you. Nancy Copenhaver from Moberly, Missouri, speaking as an individual. The part that Senator Washington was referring to, where people like the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, or the sororities cannot register people to vote without getting approval first from the Secretary of State's office, that is currently in litigation, as we know, and it has an injunction on it right now. But should that case eventually go against us, the League was part of that case, then that part would be back in again. So we would appreciate it if you could maybe include that as an amendment on the bill that would give groups such as the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, or other groups that are public service minded the ability to register people to vote or hand out the registrations for voting without having to get a permit to do so.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Seeing none, informational purposes only. Seeing none, and that concludes the hearing on Senate Bill 346. Now we'll hear Senator Brown's Senate Bill 412. When you're ready, Senator Brown, you may begin.
For the record, my name is Ben Brown, and I am the Senator for the 26th District. Thank you for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 412. I'd imagine this is probably one of the least controversial of the bills I filed this session. And what this would essentially do is it would enable the Board of Trustees for a consolidated public library district to change the date of their fiscal year. Currently, a library's fiscal year is mandated by state law to begin on July 1st and end on June 30th. The problem with this is that many consolidated library districts are having to use their reserves to cover the bills from July through December until the annual revenues are collected. Aligning our library's revenue stream with the fiscal year would be much cleaner from an accounting perspective, and this would also allow a district to better align its fiscal year with its revenue stream. It's currently a little bit of a balancing act because you have to manage contracts that run on a calendar year versus a July 1st fiscal year. So as a result, you have expenditures for those calendar year contracts that end up being budgeted in two different fiscal years for these different library districts. And this is because 90% of the local library district's revenue comes from property taxes that are, of course, collected on an annual calendar basis. This bill would not impact any library district that wouldn't want to change its fiscal year. It would just give them the option, and the legislation only allows for library district to align its fiscal year budget with the calendar year revenue stream. Among the other benefits, they've stated that this could also result in some interest savings on bonds by being able to pay those off a little.
Subdivision is set by law, and I remember, unfortunately, I was around when we passed the consolidated law several decades ago, and the issue of the fiscal year never came up, and I think somehow when it was drafted, staff just automatically put in a July 1st fiscal year, nobody thinking about the stream of revenues, and this came up in the last 6 months, and the senator was nice enough to file the bill. So it is fairly simple. I don't know that there are only 6 consolidated districts in the state, and I don't know that all of those would want to change their fiscal year, but it gives them the option. So,
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, next in support. Seeing none. Next in opposition? Seeing none. Informational purposes only? Seeing none. Any closing comments, Senator?
No, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. That concludes our hearing on local government and elections. Yeah, yeah.